Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are here sharing their expertise and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses scale through outside-the-box visibility and automation strategies. If you're new to this show, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today because you're in for a special treat. My guest and I have been talking behind the scenes. His energy is going to light you up, and I can't wait to dive in. So without further ado, welcome Andrew Chesnutt with Authority Forge to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Heidi. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. So Andrew, can you share a little bit about yourself, about Authority Forge and your role within it?
Absolutely. So my brief history is that for the past 20 years, I've been in the learning industry. I started off in corporate training, then went on to higher education. I worked for Fortune 100 companies, helping them build their training, helping them get information out. And biggest thing that I learned that I was really good at in that industry is I'm good at taking high level information and boiling it down so that mere mortals can understand it. And it was an industry I loved doing, in it for a while, but I realized there was another part that I could have in this world. So 10 years spent in the corporate world. 10 years ago, I decided to go into the entrepreneurial space. Now, my very first job, back 25 years ago, was with a small med tech startup. So I'd already been in the startup world. And what I realized one day as I took this ability to be able to take information and boil it down so people can understand it, and the startup world that I love. I was not a good employee. I did not like the corporate world. It's like I wanted to change something and it never quite worked out well, right? Corporations don't like that sort of thing, right? So I realized taking these two things and blending them together meant that I could now have an impact on other people around me while also kind of starting a business and making a living at it. And it took a little bit to get used to. First, it started off as doing like TED Talks and presentations and keynote speeches and things like that. And then it went into the marketing space. So marketing is a lot of messaging. I was talking to a client the other day, and we were walking through kind of what he does. He is a coach for men. He's in the manosphere. That's his kind of thing. And he needed hand going, how do I dial this in? What specifically do I look at? And I was able to take him and kind of say, okay, here are the key pieces you want for your client profile. These are the people we're going to reach out to, and realizing that this came easily to me, and it's a way that I could help people. And by the end of that call, he's like, thank you so much. I got more out of this hour than I have out of like 5 days because you were able to dial it in. So the Authority Forge is that. What I want to do, main goal with it, is to take all of the information that I've learned over 10 years of being an entrepreneur, all of the information I've learned over 20 years in the education industry, and make it so that founders and coaches mainly is who I work with can stick to what they're really good at and not have to do things like we were talking about before we got on today, that, bookkeeping, we all have to do it. We mostly hate it, except for those two people that really like it. And they're both accountants. Anyway, we're really good at something we're good at. We have these other things we have to do in order to keep our business viable. How could I take part of that burden away from somebody so they can go do that excellence that they're good at, go make that mark in their world? And so anyway, that's where the Authority Forge came from. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
Amazing. So thank you for sharing all of that. So for someone hearing about you, new to you, by listening to you now in Authority Forge for the first time, what problem do you solve specifically, and who is your business and what you do a perfect fit for?
Yep. I call it managing marketing mayhem. We have all been there. I've been there. Many years ago when I first started in business, I spent $15,000 ad campaign and got 0 leads. And what it was at that point, I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought this was the way you were supposed to go. I thought this was the direction. I found a company, a reputable company. I'm not going to say anything bad about them, but I didn't know where I was at. They were able to guide me through that process. And I realized the biggest issue I had is I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what my ideal client profile was. I didn't know what my messaging was. At that point in time, I'm like, I will take whatever client I can find right now, because I was new in business and just needed to get up and going. And I realized that was something I needed to solve. And so I went through years, helped build multiple 7-figure companies. So I've seen these processes through. I've seen from the inside. I've seen what a $50,000 a month ad spend looks like. I've seen how to build events, how to build these other things. And I realized that I could help other people to do that. And so that's really where this came from. And how I learned it is I've been in the trenches. So I'm looking for really clients, specifically coaches. I love working with coaches. And I've had a lot of amazing coaches who have significantly impacted my life. So I like dealing with them. They're often very passionate about what they do. So that passion often comes out in social media as well. But I love helping coaches who have some traction. You're working referral only. Referrals are not bad, but I like to have more than one way to get people in. It's always nice to have more than one thing. Isn't that entrepreneurship? You just kind of like get five or six things lined up, and there's a chance that one of them is going to come through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's how it works. Yeah. So anyway, I got to be able to people that have already gotten some level of success. They're already just starting to get some clients. They kind of know what they're doing. They have some products that have been battle tested through a few different clients, but they're ready to stop going into, I want to post, 1,600 times a day and document my entire life, get like 4 new likes out of it. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I want people to do. I want them to be strategic. I want to step in as a strategic partner inside their company going, here are the things we need. What are your goals? What are you trying to meet? And how can we help you do that? And that's really what I want to do.
So for coaching, I'd love to dive into what you just said a little
Sure.
more, because I think that's important for people to realize. We don't need to post 16,000 times. Because you've got those people out there who have gone viral. Everybody knows, like the Gary V's, and he'll say he posts hundreds of times a day. I think it's 200 times a day he's going out, but we've got to understand too, he's got a huge team behind him, and
Yes.
there's just so much content that they can repurpose and recycle. And for somebody coming in, especially a coach, who's starting out or even maybe pivoting or really dialing their message more, less is most of the time more. We don't necessarily have to do more to get more. And I think a lot of, and especially in today's world, which virality is hard to come by these days because
Yes.
more and more and more people are online. So what do you say to those people? Say somebody's listening and going, oh my gosh, I'm posting all the time. I feel like I'm living my life on my phone, recording, or feeling the pressure that I need to do that. What would you say is more important than necessarily like posting on social media all the time?
It's about quality versus quantity. So when you look at people like Gary Vee, mainly what he does is talk all day. That is his thing. Yes, he has a company to run, but he's already exited kind of that company. VaynerMedia, he's not spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week running it anymore. He's out speaking on stages because that's probably where he makes a majority of his money, is speaker fees and stuff like that. And you're right, he has an entire team behind him who are experts in this, who have already dialed in his messaging, who have already dialed it in. He's like the Ferrari at this point. We're going to talk to the folks that are still in the Ford category, and it's not like I'm not talking down to people. It's just different worlds, worlds. He's already well beyond where.
And we have goals. We have goals to get the Ferrari.
Exactly. Yeah. But for the standard coach, I mean, even people who are relatively established, you're right, you don't. It's about the quality of the conversation. If you're just posting in 16 million directions, you're not going to get any traction. When I first started, I did this. It was just omnipotent posting, whatever happens to be around there. Think about how you interact with someone. You went out and just randomly came up to, a friend of yours and randomly texted them with whatever happened to be in your head. Do you think they're going to have any idea what you do? No. Do you think that they're going to connect with you? Probably not. That's not the way to do it. We do 3 to 5 posts a week. It's not that much. It's not like it's omnipresent, right?
Right.
We do 3 to 5 posts a week that are specific to a topic. I want something about your life. So I don't document my entire life, but if I'm going to go on a trip, I want people to see that. Do 3 or 4 pictures of it, a couple of different things here, a few stories in the background, and then spread that out over the week. So, and it's more about the quality of the content. We also reuse content. So if I have a podcast, because I have a podcast called the Authority Forge podcast as well, I take that content, the shorts go into social media, 3 to 5 shorts per episode, plus I now have a LinkedIn article. So it's also kind of not just being strategic about what you're posting, but reusing material over and over again. And now and once you do that strategically, you're not spending the entire day recording videos. I spend a couple hours a week, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not
And
much. Yeah.
You mentioned something that is really important too. So no matter what, if you're a CEO, there's a lot of founder marketing now, and founder marketing has really risen to the top, I would say in the last year or so, even 2 years, the importance of it. Because before you could have your team posting or sharing, especially if you have a team behind you promoting, or you can promote the business, where now people want to connect more with the founder because they're buying the human, they're buying the person. So I'm seeing a lot more founder marketing coming out. That being said, we also want to see, I know for me personally, it was really hard for me to post personal stuff. I would just post my business. And when I was coaching, I'm not coaching anymore. Now I run an agency, but when I was coaching, it was hard for me to put that personal stuff out there. And people want to see that because that's what they connect to. It was hard for me to get vulnerable because I was like, nobody wants to hear my stuff. And I don't want to be that person spewing their sob story all over the place. Right. How do you, especially since you're building authority, what do you say to somebody who might be, I'm sure you come across coaches who are like me. They don't want to put their personal stuff out there. They want to build a business. This is what they want to highlight. What do you say to create that balance? Is it still necessary that we create the balance, or can we go most of it business wise? Because that's really what we want to put out there. Like, what do you advise people to do to make sure that they're building authority and make less is more? They're putting out that quality content while also not feeling like they're spending their life online.
Yep. So the biggest thing I could say is just think about somebody that you're talking to. And if they're talking 100% business, or if they're talking about business and, hey, I did this weekend, who do you want to talk to more? The person that talks about their weekend as well. We are designed to connect, and we're hardwired this way. This is how our brain works. Another side hustle is my mom is a psychologist, so I know how your brain works and processes information, and I kind of nerd out to this stuff. But your brain is wired to react emotionally to things. It's wired to do it. And so if I add some of that in, I don't have to go and I heard somebody refer to it as emotional nudism. I don't need to do that. I don't need to go through everything in my life that's going on. What I need to do is a couple of key things. Some people say, I do not want to talk about my kids on social media. Okay, cool. No problem at all. There's some boundaries you can have to still keep your level of privacy, but talking about a personal story. Me telling the story about $15,000 marketing campaign and not a single lead from it, that's a personal story. Now people are connecting with it. So it's more putting down specific boundaries, being strategic about how much you share or how little you share, but there needs to be something. One of my first clients, I was helping him with a webinar, and it was also a sales presentation he was doing on stages. And I can remember having this conversation with him going, he did not want to tell anyone his dad was an alcoholic. It was a thing for him. It was just this hang up he hit. And I had to tell him one day, look, but you need to do this because this is what's going to connect you to your audience. And this is not as odd of a situation as you think it is. A lot of people have been touched by alcoholism. This isn't going to be one of those weird people aren't going to talk to you things. It's going to help them to connect with you because that was part of his backstory was his father and the interaction there and that relationship. And that was part of why he did what he did. So sometimes it's, breaking things out a little bit going, let's tell this story because it's an essential part of my story. And this really isn't, I think there are some situations where people make something bigger than it actually is. If you look at it from kind of a standard story, again, most of your listeners are going to know people in their lives who have had issues with alcohol. It's a thing. And so therefore it wasn't really as much of an issue as he was making in his mind, and just kind of being able to step in and kind of say, this is critical. So hopefully that makes some sense to you, but that's really what I'm looking at is doing it strategically. You'll have your boundaries, and boundaries are fine, but going overboard can go in the other, sharing too much can also backfire on you. But honestly, your story is part of what you do. You were talking earlier about how the founders are the ones who are the ones that are out there. When you hear Gary Vee, and I mentioned VaynerMedia, you probably have heard of Gary Vee. You may or may not have heard of VaynerMedia, his big company, and it's hundreds of $million company. It's the founder side. I do this with me too. I am on all of my literature. I am in all of my posts. I do it as the founder. It's Andrew Chesnutt from The Authority Forge, not The Authority Forge starring Andrew Chesnutt. So, because I want people to connect with me, I want them to connect with my personality.
Right.
So,
and we also have to know too, right, that I'm sure you're telling your people too, it's okay for people not to resonate with you. Like as much as we want those likes and people to resonate with us, like you said earlier, you wanted to help everyone when you got started, and you realize that doesn't work. And we have to be okay and build that, tough grit about us and go, you know what, don't take it personal if somebody doesn't resonate with you, because we're not here to help everyone. You don't need to be successful. You can have your little corner of the market and build a very highly successful business.
Yep. And that's your unique thing is, yes, there are people that are not going to resonate with me. I'm cool with that because bluntly, I don't want them as clients because that's going to be very transactional. I'm not going to really be able to make as big of an impact on their lives as I would if it's somebody who just totally resonated with me and said, go do, I want to work with Andrew because Andrew's awesome. I want to go work with Heidi because I just love the fact, I love the piano in the background and I'm really, I resonate with the piano.
Dogs running back and forth, right?
But that's part of what we are as humans. A lot of times we think business is this very kind of sterile professional thing. It shouldn't be. And that's why I love the entrepreneurial spaces. That's not what this is. These are people going out and doing cool stuff with their friends. I've got a sweatshirt that says that actually. I do cool stuff with my friends. That's how I do business. We do cool stuff with people we resonate with.
Yeah. And just, for those of you listening, if you're still wondering, like, what do I share? What do I don't share? You share this was what I really learned. The aha that woke up for me, and I'm going to butcher this probably because I'm going from memory, this is a few years that I've heard this now, is you don't share the open wound. You share from a healed place. And when you share from a healed place, it's not coming out as this is like I would feel, this is my job story, please, victim. No, you're coming from a place of power because you've moved through it. And now you're sharing it for purpose. You're sharing it to connect with other people and show them that they're not alone, right? Because when many times we're going through this, we feel like we're alone. So that, I don't know if that helps anybody, but what I hear, you don't share from a wounded space. It's like you share from a healed place. And I'm like, aha, I got it.
I could sum it up in 4 words. This helped build me. Past tense. So this helped build me to where I am right now. And I think that's the criteria.
I love that. Love that. So Andrew,
yeah.
Question for you in regards to your growth. Oh no, let's before we go there, let's go AI, because we're talking about connection. This is a perfect time to talk about automation and AI, because it's really hit hard in the last 2 years, especially. I know when it first really was hitting the coaching space, when I was still coaching, I was like, no, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to. And they were telling us 2 years ago, you better dive in. And now we're all in, and some people still are dipping their toe in, which is fine. Where are you as far as using AI in your business? Like, how do you feel about what it's the purpose it's good for you? And then maybe in other areas where you're like, those are the places I don't use AI.
Yeah. We use it pretty extensively, but we use it as a tool. And what I mean is this, way back in a previous lifetime, I was a developer. So I kind of have worked with large companies in AI. And so I understand how it works and what the background is. But I also have this saying, why would I put AI on a toaster? Like, I think AI is this huge thing right now that everyone wants to put AI in everything else, and they want to keep doing all of these great things. And while AI is a very powerful tool, there's got to be a reason why you're using it. It's not good at some things. It's a very good statistical model. But I've got a copywriter on my team who put this perfectly. So I'm going to, he's a US-based copywriter. And so I'm just going to use it from him. He said, I want you to think about this. When you train an AI model, what do you think there's more of? Really bad writing or really awesome writing? There's probably more really bad writing than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to take an average of that. So what you're getting is basically going to be mediocre on a good day. What AI is very good at is helping you to take information and boil it down. It's very good at helping you to structure thoughts. It's good at helping you to be able to kind of take this huge amount of information and put it into some level of structure. There still needs to be a human involved. And so that's what we do. If I'm writing a webinar for a client, I will get onto a call. I'll use AI to record it. We go through, use the AI to just kind of get bullet points and ideas down. And then I will go through and structure the webinar. I'll go through and write the scripts on it because it needs a human touch to get a story arc across it. And we use stories in our webinars to be able to help us out. So So if you think about it, what you're going to get out of AI as far as writing is concerned is going to be mediocre at best if you just leave it up to AI. If you prompt it and put some of what your voice into it, it gets slightly better, but it's not quite there yet. I had this huge issue because I always like to kind of try things when I see a new tool. So we started to write webinars 100% with AI because I wanted to see what its capabilities were. They were trash. They were at best. And I gave it a framework. I gave it my voice. I did everything I could to set this thing up. And they were all right, but they were not great. There were a lot of gaps. It didn't flow well. It couldn't get a story arc right. And, I've used a few models to do this too, and there's some gaps in it. So what we do is we get 70% of the way there, because that's, I think, what AI should do. It should help you get 70% and then have a human do the rest of it. So what it does is it takes the little stuff like sorting through, 3 hours worth of conversation that I've had with a client, sorting through that, picking out parts that I want that with my guidance. So I'll say, hey, I remember talking about this part. What did they say here? I remember this part. Can you just take it? Helps me to organize the thoughts, put out a rough draft, and then a human looks at it. So when we do webinars, that's what we do. And it makes it so much easier for me to do that job where I can do what I'm really good at, the strategy side of things, the taking high level concepts and breaking it down so people can understand it. And it leaves that little bits and pieces that I don't really care for doing, like bookkeeping, stuff like that. It keeps those smaller tasks it takes those off my hands so I can do the creative stuff that I'm really good at. My copywriter uses them as well. We use them to generate, webinars with us, changing things around a little bit. We use it very extensively. I use it as a thought partner. Like if I'm like, let me think about this for a second. If I were to do this, what would happen? Can you take me through this strategy? And it's most of the time it's pretty good at it. You can tell when it's kind of hallucinating. But so as far as AI, I think AI has a huge shock and awe value. It is a very powerful tool when used properly, but it's not going to be this thing that's going to solve everything. I think a lot of people also, just to kind of put a side note into it, I think it's going to make people somewhat lazy.
Yeah.
I think that's the major threat right now is they think I can just put this through AI. I've had clients do this, like speaking clients that I was coaching who came back to me with a revision and you could tell it was done with AI. And I'm like, bro, that's not what I'm here for. I use AI for this stuff, but it's like, no, don't just spit something out in ChatGPT and hope I'm going to clean it up. That's not the
Right.
best way to do this. The best way to do it is now we have to actually put the work in to get that extra 30% through it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And my concern is that, like you said, people are going to get lazy
Mm.
and we're going to lose the knowledge or the know-how to be creative because
Yeah.
we're relying so much on AI. It's just like, okay, spit this into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever else. There's so many of them out there, and then go with that answer and run without double checking it. Like it used to like make a lot of mistakes, when it
Mhm.
first came out. It's
Yeah.
making less mistakes now, but I don't think there should ever be a time when we're relying on it to get things right 100% of the time. Everything
Correct.
needs to be fact checked, double checked. And it's never going to be creative like a human is. And
Yeah.
it's never going to have that connection and that relationship, human to human, ever, that we can get with one-on-one personal communication and connection and contact. So for you, for your business, how growth wise, how are you finding your people, like your coaches? Marketing wise, what are you doing that's working for you? And then on the flip side, Andrew, are there things that you've done? I know you did the $15,000, campaign that didn't get you a lead, but are there other things that you've done that just didn't get that ROI you'd hope for? And then obviously the things that hit it out of the ballpark for you.
So let's go into the $15,000 story because I think it's a really good telling story about not knowing what you don't know and how to mitigate that. So what ended up happening, I had a marketing team. I didn't have my messaging down. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew it was in this general vicinity, but that was it. And so I brought in a marketing team who didn't do the messaging first. They were looking for the next tactic. So for me, it was Google searches. Like you typed in a certain thing and it would find you and you would show up at like number one or two. This was 10 years ago, so it was really big back in the day, right? What it was is they were applying the wrong tactic without fixing the messaging. And so that was the biggest issue that I ran into. And that's why I didn't get a single lead, because nobody knew what the hell I did. It was this huge, broad swash of people. I wasn't dialing things specifically. So over the years, I've gotten a lot smarter about how I do clients. And there's two ways that I get clients. And the first one is referrals. I have worked very, very hard to build an amazing network. And these are also friends. It's not just people that I have in business. These are often people who I'll go out and do stuff with, right? I do cool stuff with my friends, and that's how I do business. So your network is a
Sweatshirt.
big one. Exactly. I go mountain biking with one. I go snowboarding with others. It's great. So that's the first part of it. The second part is I strategically use ads, and there's not one tactic that is going to work for everyone. So I want to make that clear. When we come in, I have a specific pattern that I use, but every person's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so there's not one way. We don't use tactics, we use strategies. But the way we do it is we do it an ad into, it's called a self-liquidating offer. So I have like an ebook that I'll sell, then that goes into an email nurture sequence to a webinar and then to a discovery call. So that's the other way that we do it. A little bit harder to get results from that. But we were talking about earlier about having more than one way to get people into your company, and that's how to do it. So is to do multiple streams. So I've got referrals, I have ads, which is the more classic way to do things. We also add podcasts into this, and I think people use a webinar or a podcast, and it should be an and situation, webinar and podcast. Webinar teaches you about what you do. Podcast helps to connect. That's what these are meant for. They're meant to be able to hear me conversationally talk to you, Heidi, about what I do versus if you hear me on a webinar, my tone is different because it's a different media. And I want
Right.
people to get multiple data points on me to be able to make that decision. So people do, or as far as webinars, it should be both webinar and podcast used synergistically together. Actually, I do podcast case studies. So I will actually bring somebody on with their permission and say, okay, here's where you're at in your company. Let's get you here. How are we going to build this? And so it gives people more, kind of gives back. I also bring on experts and things like that. So using the
Yeah.
podcast is a huge thing. The third way I do it is speaking. I speak on stages, and that is another great way to connect with people. I think being in the right room for those, making sure that you're selective about which masterminds you go to are a big thing. Sometimes they're paid, so sometimes you have to give a referral fee for them, but some are free. Just depends on what it is. So those are the three ways I'm getting clients right now.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. What if I could give you a magic wand, Andrew, and you can wave it over one challenge or issue you're having right now and go poof, and it disappears? What would that be and why?
So the biggest thing we have is I'm in a growth mode right now too. So I'm kind of growing the company, getting it bigger, and starting to take myself out of everyday tasks and move it on and so that I can go out and do that thing I'm really good at, talking and selling. I'm really good at those things, so I know my lane, right? So I think one of the things that would be wonderful is helping with staff. Like finding specific people. I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had a lot of really good success there. And so part of what it is finding the right people for the right job. I've messed this up more times than I wish to admit to. Having somebody in thinking that they're going to solve everything when they may not. You kind of need to hedge your bets a little bit on this. You need to be able to say, okay, now if this person didn't follow through, what am I going to do as a backup plan? I didn't do that first of all, and that caused couple of issues. But right now it's just, yeah. And if I had somebody to come in and just document what I do, I did this with Gemini one day because again, I use AI a lot, where I just sort of said, here's everything in my head, get it down onto paper. And it did a pretty good job. We're working through the specifics of what those SAPs look like and how to use them, and it takes a little bit of time for a team to kind of get up and going with that. If I could speed up that process, I think that would be my magic wand. There's a few going on in the growth mode, but if I were to make a recommendation for anyone who is going through growth, document everything. Doesn't have to be perfect. Get it down on paper. I call this lottery planning. An old boss of mine, she made it very clear to me and said, if you win the lottery or if I win the lottery, I'm going to be very clear and say that I am not showing up to work that next day. So we need to have a plan just in case. And she's like, I don't expect you to either. Yeah. Make sure that you're not the only one in your company. So if you look at what Gary Vee's doing and how he was able to step out, just to go back to the beginning with VaynerMedia, he's involved with the company, but not every day. Like he comes in and does the super high level strategies and that's it. He's more out there going out, talking, speaking on stages, doing what he wants to do. And for me, I'm trying to get to that point as well. So we're getting there slowly but surely. Just takes some time to do it.
You're going to be the Ferrari.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to get in front of as many Ferraris as I can, go do cool stuff. And, hey, quick backstory. I was in Las Vegas a while ago for a corporate event, and we got to race supercars around the Las Vegas Speedway. I was in an Aston Martin Viscount, and that was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Wow, sounds amazing. Yeah. So you got your vision. Aston Martin.
I have my visions.
Yes. Race around the racetrack again. I can't wait. When it happens, you got to call me and let me know so we can share it. So Andrew, you shared about what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, shared about your challenge. When it comes to putting people in place on your team, for those listening, they may know of somebody that would be good. Do you have specific areas you're looking for to fill those gaps for you right now? Or are you still navigating that?
Right now, I think we've got everything in place. What I do is, and I've learned this, and I like this technique, is I have my team recommend people. I have gotten some amazing referrals from just doing that, having somebody vouch for someone, going, here's why I think they're a good fit. And instead of saying, I think they're a good social media marketing manager, okay, they might be, but I think they're a good social media marketing manager, and here's how I see them fitting into your company. And completing that second part of the sentence is the critical part. How do they fit in? As founders, we often think, I need this. Okay. Why? How do they fit into your company? Again, it was something that I made a mistake of early on. I've seen a lot of founders do this, where they just kind of put somebody in thinking they're going to solve a problem, do it intentionally. And so that's the thing. So I'd say as far as picking employees, that's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because we didn't talk about that, and that we could do a full other podcast interview and conversation on that, which is culture and really knowing what your core values are, what your company's core values are. And then when you're hiring people, making sure that their core values are aligned with yours. I think that's something that, as you mentioned, a lot of founders don't think about. It's a matter of, okay, how do we get to that next level? How do we get to that ROI and those numbers goals? And okay, this person did great for these companies. And then realizing when they come in that they are good at what they do, but just there's other areas that there's not alignment, and leaving that piece out, I think is hurtful and ends up putting us behind versus ahead. So I think that's a great piece. I wanted to make sure we touched on, because culture is really, really important. And also the culture inside is going to be reflected on the outside, which is going to be the people that you're attracting. So you want to make sure that the culture inside is where you want it to be to attract those similar people to your business as your clients, because we want to enjoy working with our clients, right, Andrew?
Yes, we do. I'm going to be blunt. There's clients I've said, no, you're not going to work. That's not going to work together. Because for me, I can't serve clients that I don't want to work with. I don't want to be transactional. This is me coming in, but you are correct. And I think a lot of people don't think about, this is me talking from the learning and development world. I think a lot of people don't think about that corporate culture. They think it's this kind of woo-woo thing that's out there, when in fact, no, there's a lot more to it. It changes over time. So when you're a startup, the corporate culture is going to be very different than when you're kind of an established corporation. And I think there's this bridge that founders have to get through where they're, you start off with this scrappy startup who's bootstrapping and just kind of trying to get things up and going. And now there's this established company. So I think there's different phases, different types of corporate culture, but I still think, I've got a good friend of mine, Kelly, and that's all he does is corporate culture, speaks a lot on it because that's his thing. So I think it's a huge deal. We got to look at it. Do you want to hang out with your friends all day and do actual work and hold each other accountable and do your thing? Or do you want to go with a bunch of strangers who clock out at 5 p.m.? What do you want more? I want to go out and kind of do cool things with my friends, and we hold each other accountable. We build this really big thing and we make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that what you said is there's an evolution there. Where you're at as a startup is getting scrappy, long hours. It's different than where you're going to be in 5 years when you're scaling and you're building, and you've got a bigger team behind you too. Still might be scrappy at times, still might be some late nights, but it's at a different level, and culture will change or shift a little bit, which pivoting is another conversation we could have, but we're not going to go there today because I need to make sure that I'm respectful of your time. But you've pivoted, so would love to real quick. How did you have any challenges when you pivoted? As far as, because you've done it, I think this is your third company. You've helped build 2 7-figure businesses. This is now this one, Authority Forge. What were the biggest challenges you faced when pivoting, and how did you move through them?
Yeah, I pivoted with the Authority Forge. That was a pivot for me. So I've done this a bunch of times. And so let's talk about that one, because I think it was a real realization for me. Up until that point, I was just doing presentations and keynotes, and I loved doing them. But I realized at one point it wasn't scalable, and monthly recurring revenue is a huge deal. And so I wanted to find something that was going to have the same level of impact, but also from a business standpoint was going to be, I could automate it, I could systematize it if I, as I needed, still maintain that client relationship, but do it in a way that would be a little bit more scalable. And so that's why I pivoted. And it just took me a moment. I love doing presentations. I love coaching people, but I also love doing podcasts and webinars. So it was just kind of taking another skill set and moving it, so that way the business was a little bit more aligned with what was going on and what I was doing. So it was that was one of the major pivots. Sometimes it's a matter of where you've grown. Sometimes something that you thought was going to work, the market changes, and now you're in a situation where your business model is not going to work anymore, and you've got to pivot. I think founders pivot very quickly, and it's not always a good thing. It has to be a strategic pivot, not a fear-based pivot. Just because something isn't going right, doesn't necessarily mean that that's not the direction you need to go in. Sometimes it's just a tweak pivot. It's a little bit of a move. Sometimes it's a situation like with the first company that way back yonder that we helped found. The owner of the company had a show on TV, on HGTV. He was doing flipping at the time. We had a whole business model mapped around this, 4 years worth of work. HGTV didn't pick up the show. Discovery bought it and said no new shows. So now we have to do a big pivot. That was a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
And so went into another world that he had been in for a long time. So it was a total pivot. Depends on what it's going to be. Market conditions. There's a lot of different reasons for it. I think being intentional with your pivot, why are you doing it? And have somebody in your life. I think every entrepreneur needs at least one person in their life who candor is their love language. Like they will tell you, dude, that sucks. And they're coming at it from a really, from a loving standpoint. Like they want to see you win, but they have no problem telling you things you don't want to hear. And that can help with pivoting.
one of
I had a
those in
friend of
my
mine.
life for sure.
I
Yeah.
had one of my closest friends does the same thing. He was the person I went to when I was going to pivot the company because I wanted his opinion, hearing, okay, am I just doing this because I'm in my head, or do I really need it? And he absolutely shot down like 5 or 6 different ideas. And that's the relationship we have. We're very blunt with each other, but I
Mhm.
needed to hear that too. So
Yeah,
kind of
for
a little
sure.
tidbit.
Yeah, no, you make a good point when you're, everybody can be, some people take too long to
Yeah.
pivot, never
Yeah.
pivot in time when they should, and other people pivot too much because they feel like they're just reacting to what's happening in the world when actually they should be pausing. So under getting clarity on where you are, if you're in this, if you're listening to Andrew and I, and you're like, it's been kind of in my thought process that I need to make a pivot, get some clarity, find your candor person
Mhm.
with love and have the conversation, and also take a step back and go from like, look at it from the outside looking in, going, okay, is this necessary truly? Or is there a small tweak, like Andrew said, that you can make so you're not just throwing the baby out with the bathwater and going, I'm going to start over. We don't want to be doing that all of the time either. So Andrew, for those listening going, I want to connect with him, I want him to handle my webinar, or talk to him about podcasting or marketing and all the things that you do, and you do more, how can they learn more about what you do and connect with you?
Easiest way to do it is my website, theauthorityforge.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under those names as well, and LinkedIn. So you can take a look at any one of those places and look me up.
Perfect. Well, make sure you connect with Andrew Chesnutt with the Authority Forge, theauthorityforge.com. If you're driving and you can't go on there right now and check it out and follow him or connect, don't worry, we got you. Everything's in the show notes. So you can go in the show notes and grab all of his links and all of his information. But you can easily go to theauthorityforge.com and get everything you need to know, plus hit those socials and connect with Andrew and let him know you heard him here on the Business Growth Spotlight. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello. We're happy to see you. Thank you for being here with us. Drop a comment for Andrew below. If you know of anybody that would benefit from hearing Andrew today and learning about the Authority Forge, please share this. Our goal here is to help businesses grow. Over 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. This goal of this podcast is to flip those numbers. We want to see more businesses thriving, especially with the evolution of AI. More people are out there trying to make a go at entrepreneurship, and we want to support them. And Andrew's here helping us on that mission by sharing with you all what's worked, what hasn't worked, the ins and outs of his growth. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. If you're inclined to leave a review, we'd love 5 stars. That helps the platform push this episode and our podcast out to more people so they can hear Andrew and learn about the Authority Forge and support them in the growth of their business. Andrew, before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to share or say that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about today? We talked about a lot, and I know at the last minute I threw in some last minute things, but anything else that I kind of missed?
I think there's one main thing that I can give as a piece of advice that I've learned over the years as far as entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurs try to do everything themselves because this is our baby. We're building something big. We have a lot of passion for what we do. Sometimes that's all we have. Things are going wrong and we need it. I think founders try to take on too much. And at first you have to. When you're bootstrapping a company, you need to do what you need to do to make this go forward. Always realize if you think you need to bring somebody in or you think you need to get a hand with something, it's probably also already well past the point you should have done that. And as long as that person can meet 80% of what you do within your business and you're clear with what you have them do, you're clear with what their responsibilities are, and you bring someone in to do it, don't always think they're going to be perfect. Communicate. And as long as they can get you 80% of what you could do in that business, they are an asset to your company.
I love that. And I think that's key too, as founders or as people with this as our baby, we can tend to bring somebody on and then want to do it all ourselves anyway, because we're like, we could do it faster. We could do it better because we've done it. However, allow them to make the mistakes because they're going to grow and they're also going to come in with fresh ideas and some creative opportunities that we wouldn't have thought of. So I love that. Perfect way to end this. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you all for listening to Andrew and I and being here with us. Make sure you go connect with him. Go to theauthorityforge.com. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlights.